2020, a special year which humanity will remember for sure in the future. This pandemic has imposed new social rules and rewritten many orders, and being in public spaces, riding public transport, social interaction and so on are now dominated by the mantras keep a distance or isolate yourself and things that we know already.
Did you know Belgium even made international news with our minister telling us, limit your color context? We're famous now.
Boring! Welcome! Thank you for listening to the podcast of The Guys of 11th Avenue. I'm Angelo.
And I'm Arnie. And we are your hosts for today.
How do you imagine people living during a world war or during the Black Death?
Well, I don't know. Maybe just try to survive.
Like us, think to your eventual nephew, ask you, hey granddaddy, how was living during the 2020 pandemic?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, this pandemic is certainly the biggest thing I've experienced yet. We'll have some stories from it that we certainly can tell to our children and maybe beyond.
It's certainly something that will change the society in which we are living right now. We're seeing it now, but this pandemic will undoubtedly also have some long-term effect on us, our life and our society.
Yeah, you know, we've been staying inside for a long time now. And this, for example, has shown the strengths and maybe more important, the weaknesses of our city. It has been interesting to see how people rediscovered their city and how important a safe, sustainable and resilient city is these days.
Ooh, Arnie, guess what? Pandemicity is the title of this podcast. What you are saying is exactly what we want to explore in our podcast today. How COVID-19 can be a catalyst in creating positive change to our cities.
Let's start from the beginning. To discuss sustainable cities, we need to talk about SDGs and go back to the year 2015 when the UN General Assembly created 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short, and also the Agenda 30. The plan was to end poverty, combat climate change and fight inequalities by 2030.
That sounds ambitious, you will be thinking right now. One of these goals, SDG 11, stands for creating sustainable cities and communities.
Like that, we can see the relevance between safe cities and COVID-19. It is during COVID times that people began to value the presence of healthy and safe spaces in their city. The pandemic not only exposed how unsustainable cities can be, but they also triggered governments, urban planners and even ordinary citizens like you and me to do something about it. No?
Absolutely. And of course, if your answer is no, yeah, you should. In this journey, we will take you to the streets of Leuven in Belgium and to Lima in Peru to hear from other citizens and talk about an interesting project.
Okay, let's try to answer the important question. What can people, what can urban planners and governments learn from this COVID situation? Let's start.
First of all, what is the common man or woman thinking about all this? What is important for them? We are going live to Arnie for us in Leuven.
Yeah, thank you Angelo. This is Arnie, live from the streets in Leuven. Dear listeners, please don't worry, we are totally corona-proof here, so don't send this file to any police office. So I'm here trying to catch some people and I want to ask them how important healthy urban spaces have been for them. Now I have to say it's not that easy because they're kind of avoiding me. I'm trying to find someone, maybe they're... Oh yeah, okay, I got someone, thank you. Hello, I'm doing a little interview regarding the current pandemic situation. Could you answer some questions for me? First, who are you and where did you live during the pandemic?
I'm Jitte, I'm a student in Leuven and during the pandemic I was living in a dorm.
Was it important to have healthy and safe spaces such as natural spaces, parks, playgrounds, community gardens in the neighborhood during the pandemic? And can you maybe tell me why it was important for you?
I definitely think it is important because having public places in the neighborhood make sure that I had a safe place to go with friends to meet at a safe distance. And also I live in a dorm in Leuven and it is a very small space with no garden, so for enjoying some nature or just getting some fresh air. It was very nice. In Leuven there are quite a lot of places where I could go, such as parks, playing fields, and it was nice to go there during the pandemic because it had a lot of options for me.
Okay, thank you, Jutta, for your time, and I hope you have a nice day. Okay, Angelo, now I'm gonna find someone else to have a second opinion on this. Let me see. Oh, there is a good-looking guy. I'm gonna ask him. Hello, sir. Can I ask you a question? I'm doing a little interview about healthy spaces during this pandemic situation. First, can I ask who you are and maybe where did you live during the pandemic?
Hello, I'm Jonas. I'm 28 years old and I work as an environmental consultant. I live at my apartment. Not really great, but like it's decent for me to maintain my lifestyle as a young worker.
Hello, Jonas, and thank you for your time. First of all, I'm on the street and I'm asking people how important healthy and safe spaces have been for them during this pandemic. I'm talking about natural spaces such as parks, playground, community gardens. So for you, how important was it, and maybe why was it important for you?
Yeah, I think it's really important because even though I'm busy during the day and I work during the day, it's still important to like deconnect from the work. So you have to maintain your contact with the green areas, to focus on nature as well sometimes, to just relax after a busy day of work. And I didn't really have the space for that at my apartment because like it's pretty small. It's just like it's a third floor apartment, as I mentioned. So it's really important to keep some distance sometimes as well, and to relax into nature. And luckily I had some parks close by. In Leuven we have quite a lot of parks, not too far. They're not the biggest, but they're decent and it's nice to just walk around.
And Jonas, do you think this should be right for everyone?
I think so, yeah. I can't imagine that some people would be denied from the parks or something like that. But yeah, I think the government should make sure that everyone has a park nearby that is accessible, that is safe as well, because not all parks feel as safe as the ones that are close in my neighborhood. But I think it's very important that it's like a safe space for everyone and accessible, like.
Thank you, Jonas. This was Arnie live from Leuven. We now go back to the studio.
The great Greek philosopher Aristotle once said, "Man is by nature a social animal." We should talk about the impact of COVID on our cities and society. Researchers are only beginning to understand the psychological consequences of this pandemic. At the Lima Institute, it was found that 58% of Europeans suffered from some form of psychiatric problems during this pandemic. This figure could be related with the availability of safe public spaces. But equally important to that is the local citizen right to access these safe spaces, which should not be exclusive. Our cities have been greatly impacted by this pandemic. Indeed, according to the UNDP, 90% of COVID cases occur in cities and areas of rapid urbanization, especially slums where the most vulnerable live. In some urban communities, living conditions during lockdowns have deteriorated because of overcrowded homes and a lack of basic services and necessities. Furthermore, displacements due to unaffordable rents have also increased, putting more people at risk of the virus, poverty and violence. Therefore, it is time to rethink cities as places that aspire to offer its residents quality of life, better health and well-being. This will include designing and ensuring access for all people to community services and safe public spaces as proposed in the SDG 11.
But before we go on, let's clarify the concept of safe public spaces. Safety begins with the feeling that one has a right to occupy a space and is comfortable doing so. Safe public spaces allow for all people to interact safely and with ease of access. It is where people can live, where they can work, where they can study, play, grow old, and thrive in their immediate environment, with relative safety, security, and predictability. A public space should ideally be designed and constructed with all members of the community in mind, while acknowledging that people living in it have rights to the public space. During a pandemic, green city areas such as parks, urban forests, boulevards, and common fields are invaluable open-air resources. People can take advantage of these to escape from the isolation and mental stressors of being locked inside their homes over an extended period of time. However, some public or common spaces and the way they are designed are directly connected in the spread of the virus, such as narrow shopping streets and compact markets. Traditionally, the design goal of urban spaces was to encourage sociability and community integration. Despite that, the pandemic has prompted the need to think out of the 1.5-meter bubble. The aim is to create spaces which promote health and well-being in preparation for future pandemics, while at the same time taking the opportunity to make urban cities more sustainable and resilient. The access to safe spaces has been very important during COVID times, but access is not always guaranteed, or neither it is equal. Around the world, a lot of people, planners and communities embraced the pandemic situation and started new projects to deal with it. We've seen that COVID can maybe be an opportunity to rethink these public safe spaces in our journey to more sustainable cities.
We had the opportunity to talk with Cludia Oshige, project coordinator of Ocupa Tu Calle, also known as Occupy Your Street, in Lima, the capital city of Peru. She advocates for reducing the inequality of Lima's urban life by promoting, improving, or creating public spaces in neighborhoods that don't have the access to quality public spaces. Peru imposed one of the longest lockdowns in the world, and Lima has been greatly affected by the pandemic in many aspects. Here in the studio, Claudia. Can you tell us how the pandemic has affected Lima and how it was addressed by the city? Thank you.
Hello, Angelo. Thank you for having me. Well, Lima, before the pandemic, was already a very unequal city. So, vulnerable communities live the worst part of it. The poorest communities in Lima most likely live in overcrowded houses, have less access to quality and free public spaces, among other problems. Larger green areas are often private and they are not accessible for all residents of Lima. Only a few are adequate and free for all. Definitely, lockdowns have increased even more this unequal access. We know now that open spaces and large spaces are safer when maintaining social distance. So responses like the ones that have been taken, like closing beaches or limiting access to big parks, but allowing malls and shopping centers to be open without restrictions, just show where the actual interest of governments are, and not precisely the well-being of all Limanians. There was just one positive action that was implemented: the no car Sundays. People could use the streets to run, to cycle, to walk in a safe way. However, this was recently taken down.
So, policymakers have not responded quite great, huh? In this context, what is Ocupa Tu Calle proposing?
I've heard that your project aims to develop the Public Spaces Pact 2020, right? Can you maybe tell us anything about it?
In Ocupa Tu Calle, we believe that public spaces should be a priority for city planners. We have been always worked with the renewal and the creation of accessible and free public spaces in poor communities in Lima. And now our most important project is a public spaces pact, a COVID edition public spaces pact. We wish to upscale our own principles to make local governments adopt them and incorporate them in their city planification. This pact was made with local organizations, with international organizations, city experts, and we see this pact as a new opportunity to dialogue and to reach consensus between citizens and their governments for the sake of Lima and their residents.
Thank you very much, Anna. This pact is indeed a good step forward towards a more sustainable society. We are glad we had the opportunity to speak with you and we would like to wish you success with the project. We've talked about sustainable cities, but it's important to know that it's not only about ecological or economically sustainable cities. We wanted to show you that there's also a sociological side, and is also important. Actually, sustainability consists of three main pillars: environmental, economical, and the social one. Very often, people tend to confuse sustainability and social action with climate action.
For instance, yesterday I was trying to explain this to a not so well informed friend of mine, and he was so upset knowing that SDGs aren't just about direct environmental protection actions. He was expecting SDGs as plant trees, keep the ocean cleaned, and stuff like that. We did some interviews to get people's opinion about healthy and safe urban spaces, because making cities sustainable is a story where everyone should be involved with. It's not only about governments, not only about urban planners, but it's also about the people themselves, about society. Here, clearly emerged the concept of shared local knowledge. We focused on COVID, but this is only a way of highlighting the importance of such sustainable and resilient cities. Speaking of the virus, we referred more to healthy spaces, but it's important to know that it's not only about now or only this pandemic, but it's for always and for everyone.
And there it is, the end of today's podcast.
Yes!
For everyone who's listening, thank you for being with us. As always, you can send us comments, suggestions, and then we kindly invite you to listen to our next podcast.
Yes! We were honored to be your host today. For now, stay safe, stay healthy, happy holidays, and hope to see you soon.
Psst, Angelo. I know I shouldn't be asking you, but can we maybe end with a boom?
A what?
You know, a boom. So people will remember us.
I don't know.
Please, I know everyone will like it. It can become like our trademark.
Trademark? Okay, but if I get fired for this, you're gonna down with me, my friends.
Okay, sure.
Greeting from the guys of 11th Avenue.